Hey, this is Leana Hafer. I reviewed Valheim back when it launched into early access 4 years ago. It's kind of hard to believe it's been that long. And it's gotten quite a few updates since then, so it felt like a good time to revisit it, talk about what's changed, what's been added, and show off some footage of the newest update, which is the opt-in beta Call to Arms update that makes some pretty big changes to combat. But we're also going to be talking about everything that's come in most of the larger patches over the last 4 years as well. This remains one of my favorite survival crafting games, and I play a lot of these. I also have a pretty high standard for anything that's Norse or Viking related, since it's been an area of interest for me for many, many years. And Valheim just generally does a great job with both, so first, let's look back at what I said about Valheim way back in early 2021. Whether I'm fighting for my life, plundering forgotten barrows, or just watching the sun play across the water in a calm moment of respite, Valheim has created a world I'm consistently joyful to live in and discover more of. It's definitely a traditional survival game at heart, which means the further in you get, the more you have to put up with some tedious grinding before you can get back to the good parts. But even at its early access launch, those good parts are already very good, especially when you get to take to the seas or test your skill against its imposing bosses. And the simple but exceptional art and music create a strong sense of place in which to do it all. Grab some mead and come join me by the fire. I don't think you'll be disappointed. All of that basically holds true today as well, except the world has gotten a lot bigger and pretty much every system has been improved on in some small or large way. Except the Grey Dwarves, they're still annoying as hell, but we'll get to that. So like I said, this file you're seeing me play right now is based on the opt-in beta patch that was announced at Gamescom 2025. You can opt into it right now, but it still has a few little things that are still undergoing tweaking and balancing, which is why it's a beta patch and not the full, released version of the patch yet. It's called the Call to Arms update, and it's really brought what I think are some of the most significant changes to combat, especially melee combat. There's a trinket gear slot now that lets you build up adrenaline throughout a battle. It's basically like a super meter if you're familiar with fighting games. And you get different effects at full adrenaline for different trinkets. I haven't found a lot of these yet. I think there may be a reward for higher level dungeons, but it's a nice little addition to your combat rotation, I guess. I really like the new perfect dodge mechanic, which gives you stamina back if you dodge right before an attack hits you. That really makes it possible, I think, to run a melee build without a shield. That wasn't a lot of fun before. As long as you're good at timing enemy attacks. If you're a Souls-like player like I am, you'll probably love this. Perfect blocks no longer cost stamina too, which means shield and sword is also more viable than it used to be. Maybe the reign of the stealth archer is coming to an end. Probably not entirely, but at least it won't be like the obvious most powerful playstyle. Just like everything that's changed in Valheim over the years, combat is basically the same system that's always been here, but they've made it a little bit better and a little bit deeper. If there's a mascot for this patch, though, it's definitely this big bear. I don't know why it took so long to put a bear in the Viking survival game. That seems like a pretty obvious addition, but she's here now. Somewhere below a troll in terms of difficulty, so it's kind of a half-step mini-boss, I guess is how I would term it, that shows up in the Black Forest. And I think it adds some good enemy variety to those early areas, which is where most people end up spending the majority of their time anyway. Like, anything you can do to flesh out the first 20-30 hours of the game, I think, is going to pay dividends, because not every playthrough is even going to get a lot further than that. And then if you collect bear parts, you can build a new weapon, these claws, and an armor set that really leans into a super aggressive melee playstyle. Thinking ahead, I'm kind of worried that they'll be completely underpowered by the mid to late game, but it's nice for the first little leg of your adventure to be able to just go full berserker. Very thematic. In the bigger picture, Valheim has become just a much more complete adventure saga since I originally reviewed it. We've got 2 additional biomes now. There's the Mistlands and the Ashlands with their own attendant bosses. I haven't been able to check the latter out yet on this fresh save that I made specifically for this patch, where I'm about 25 hours in as I'm recording this. And as a matter of fact, even with well over 100 hours in Valheim across multiple playthroughs, I've still never even seen the Ashlands for myself, which were added just last year in 2024. Which is kind of cool. Like, the world is huge. I'm not done with what is already here yet so far, and that's really exciting. There's still a little bit left to go on the early access roadmap before we're seeing what would be like a 1.0 version. There's 1 major boss and 1 major biome still missing, but we're a lot closer to the finish line than we are to the start. I talked about, even in my initial early access playthrough, I could barely tell that this is an early access game with the amount of content and the level of polish, and that's only become more true. The amount that's already here could take you months to chew through if you play kind of on and off like I do, where I'll go in these like 20, 30, 40 hour spurts and then maybe not play it for a handful of months and then come back to it. Like, the sheer amount of time it would take to even run into a proverbial under construction sign really puts them out of reach for what most of my playthroughs have even come close to accomplishing. And it makes me wonder, like, if it takes 60 plus hours for me to even notice something that doesn't seem finished, is this really an unfinished game, or am I just waiting for an expansion to come out? It really kind of feels more like the latter. Every area they've added has fresh enemies, unique survival challenges, new recipes. They're very thematically coherent. The higher level biomes, like the Mistlands, pull in a lot of mythological elements that contrast with sort of the peaceful, woodsy setting of the early areas. Moving from the Black Forest into the swamps still really sucks, honestly, with how much more unforgiving the terrain, enemies, and status effects become. It's like right at the same time that the travel distances by boat are becoming a bit of an issue, but you haven't unlocked portals yet. Like, this is where most of my runs have ended.
What are you doing in my swamp?
And who likes a stinky poison swamp anyway? I mean, I know Miyazaki from Software does, but I mean, like, normal people. It's definitely my least favorite biome, even in the latest patch, but it is worth getting through it to see what comes after it. Grey Dwarves in the Dark Forest, like I said, they're still annoying little pests that come to bother you all the time and present very little combat challenge. I would love it if they would add a trinket that scares away lower level enemies like this. Like, remember the Morrowind mod that added a belt that would zap cliff racers out of the air? I want that, but for Grey Dwarves. Are Valheim players too young to remember Morrowind? You know what, don't even answer that. I don't want to know. Gear progression feels a lot less grindy now. I haven't compared the numbers to see how much of that is actual changes to, you know, the ore drop rates and carry weights, and how much it's just that I've gotten used to how time consuming it is. I remember it felt really tedious on my first playthrough, teching up from stone to bronze. It felt like it just took hours and hours, and it doesn't feel like that now. It's probably a little bit of both, just that I know the gameplay loop a little bit better, but they've probably also done some streamlining. I would have to go line by line through the patch notes to really see, but it feels better to me now. And while I was a little bit annoyed at first by the lack of realism, so to speak, in the fact that repairing items doesn't cost crafting materials, I have to admit I was wrong about that. It's actually a great quality of life feature that I don't have to go hunt down extremely rare materials to keep my best gear nice and shiny. You know, it's good to know that once I craft something, it's mine forever. Looking at you, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. Building stuff is probably the one area where I think other survival crafting games have kind of left Valheim behind, unfortunately. Mainly in terms of how fiddly it can get with the actual controls. Like, I know part of this is that it's meant to be fairly realistic, and I respect that, but the variety of structural building pieces, especially early on, is still kind of disappointing, and it's just a massive pain to work on rooftops or anything high up with how stairs and ladders and slopes behave. As unrealistic as it is, I really wish I had something like, scaffolding from Minecraft, which lets you ascend up to whatever height you need just by holding jump. I know we can't have Dune Awakening style hovering in fantasy Scandinavia, but maybe I could send a raven buddy up there to help me play stuff. I'm just spitballing ideas here. Like I said, though, I was a big fan of Valheim when it was roughly half of what it is now, and the fact that it's gotten so much richer and the progression is so much deeper in the last 4 years, and even mechanics I was interacting with on my first day of early access have improved in some subtle ways. If this game doesn't completely lead the pack for the whole survival crafting genre, it's at least very close to the front of it. I never get tired of its charming, low-res 3D art style, the contrast between these calm meadows and foreboding dungeons. I haven't ever really put it down for more than a few months at a time since it launched, and I'm always excited about the idea of starting a new world, even if I know the first few verses by heart at this point. Maybe someday I'll even set foot in the Ashlands. For now, I need to go check on my dang bees again, because honey still takes way too long to make. Work faster, bees!
Not the bees! Ah! Oh, my eyes! My eyes! Ah!
If you want more of my thoughts about Valheim, feel free to go check out my original early access review from 2021. I've also got a couple pretty exciting previews from Gamescom that just ended. With Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, we finally got to play it. And Dawn of War 4, which kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't even know it existed until a few weeks ago. So for all of that and more, stick with IGN.